playing video. Like I have embedded a video in my presentation.
Yeah.
But do you think I should just skip it, or shall I give it a go and see what happens?
Give it a go, see what happens.
Okay. Not done it before, so.
Oh, okay. Always worth a try.
Yeah.
I see previous chair, Butamelo, is online. Hello, Butamelo.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you.
And you? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And previous treasurer, David Slater, I see.
Hello, Mike. David Slater here.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, David.
Hello. How are you doing?
Very well. How are you?
Good, thanks.
It's been ages.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Molly? Molly, who did the poster and everything. Hi, Molly. Still connecting. Interesting to see how it accelerates the number of people as we approach the time.
Yes.
Usually peaks a minute or so after.
Exactly.
Okay, there are one or two other people I know. Yes, here we go. Will be joining us. We'll just give another minute or so, Hannah, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I think that was that Harold? No?
That was Harold.
Oh, right.
Well done on England showing today and yesterday.
Oh, yeah, we're doing okay this time. Makes a bit of a change. Harold's committee member of the ASB, and Harold and Geraldine are very keen and accomplished amateur astronomers in Botswana. I see Prof Hillhouse, who's head of physics and astronomy at Bust, has joined. Corinne Baylor-Jones from MPI in Heidelberg. Excuse me if I don't know everybody on this call at all, but there may be one or two people from Botswana Tourism Organisation, BTO, and maybe one or two people from the sister society in the UK, which is Southport Astronomical Society, would you believe? Okay. I've had Chamotso, I've had a message from Guian, the secretary, to say that he's not able to get in. So
just got the same message from Atlonolo. I think he has got the wrong link. He somehow probably is clicking on the wrong link.
Okay. 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 I'll just send a message to him. So look. Oh, here's Guian. So okay, Ian is the secretary of the Astronomical Society of Botswana, so I'm pleased he could get in this time. Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm Mike Bird. I'm speaking to you from near Liverpool in the UK, where I'm Emeritus Professor at Liverpool John Moores University. But I'm also a visiting professor in astrophysics at Bust in Botswana. And I'm honoured to be the Vice Chair of the Astronomical Society of Botswana. So welcome everybody. It's a particular delight to welcome Hannah Dalgleish, Dr. Hannah Dalgleish, who's our speaker this evening. Hannah did her BSc in St Andrews, and then an MSc Astromundus, which involved 3 European institutions in Innsbruck, Padova, and Belgrade. Is that right?
Yeah. You've done your research.
And then I'm delighted to say did a PhD at JMU in Liverpool under the supervision of Steve Longmore and Nate Bastian. Steve is actually giving a talk next month on the drones project. So that's on the 23rd of September. So a lot of you will no doubt want to listen to that. Anyway, currently Hannah is a postdoc working for two universities, the University of Oxford, which is where you are at the minute, but also University of Namibia, and has only just come back from living in Windhoek as part of that. So it's a delight to, as I say, to welcome Hannah to speak to us tonight about astronomy and astrotourism for development, the Namibian Example. So if I can hand over to you, Hannah, to share your screen and ask everybody, as I'm going to do, to go on to mute while the presentation takes place. Then we'll have a little bit of time at the end for questions and answers, and we'll take it from there. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you very much for the invitation and for all coming here tonight. So yeah, I spent a total of 7 months in Windhoek in Namibia in the end, looking at all sorts of different ways that I can use astronomy as a tool for sustainable development and to especially kind of build capacity and benefit society socioeconomically. And so a big part of that was tourism and a bit of education as well. But I always like to start this talk by first introducing the Sustainable Development Goals. So there are 17 of these in total, and they were set up by the UN in 2015, I think. And essentially these are kind of roadmaps and goals for which countries all over the world, regardless of your GDP or what have you, that everyone should be working towards them. And within the goals, you also have several targets that kind of define actions a bit more clearly on things that countries should be working on to kind of make the world and a better place and make everything more equal for all humanity as well. So initially it probably looks quite hard to see how astronomy can fit into many of these goals. So I'm just going to start with a few examples. So for example, looking at sort of economic related goals, we have things whereby astronomers have helped develop technology such as things like Wi-Fi, CCDs, and the GPS that you have on your smartphones, and also medical uses like in MRIs. So astronomers not necessarily have developed these specifically, but they were developed because the instrumentation that we use to observe all of the amazing objects in the universe required this kind of technology, which is then applicable in many other areas that we wouldn't normally expect. Then we have also a lot of jobs being provided for all sorts of people, not just the astronomers, but also all the engineers as well, and all the people that sort of build and maintain the observatories and build instruments. So this is a picture of an instrument called Muse, which is incredibly complicated and looks quite scary. But essentially, yes, so astronomers really do drive innovation, drive technology, and also most of the money from astronomy all gets put back into society through jobs and stuff like that. But then another example is tourism. So essentially people, communities in rural areas could support their way of life through doing a bit of tourism, perhaps from people even coming to stay in their homes. There's an example of this in the Himalayas called Astro Stays, where just regular tourists are invited into people's homes to learn about astronomy and do some stargazing in a really dark sky area. Then here's an example of that project. I'm going to try and play this video, and I'm not sure if it will work.
हमारा 4 लेडी लोग और मैं हम लोगों को एक टेलीस्कोप ऑपरेट करने की ट्रेनिंग दिए थे 3 दिन का था वो तो वहाँ पे हम लोग साइंटिस्ट लोग जो बेंगलोर से आए हुए तो वहाँ पे उन लोगों से मिलके उन लोगों से हम थोड़ा ज्ञान ले और टेलीस्कोप कैसे हैंडल करना है इस गांव में काफ़ी टूरिस्ट आता है तो टेलीस्कोप के जरिए हम उनको कुछ स्टार और कुछ प्लैनेट दिखा सकें
La si me garder ça la zola si tu nous pas jing di chin ta ten dari tu nous pas tiang yong amin le tiang res pa yong aja yong pa yong go yang di tong ring aja chok pa ni
Yes, so I think that's a really wonderful example of how astronomy and tourism can provide opportunities for really rural and isolated communities that are really struggling to survive and make an income in at least the modern society that we've created. And so, yeah, through this program, more than 30 women have been trained and more than 680 tourists have come so far to experience the Astro Stays program. And this was funded initially by, partly funded by the Office of Astronomy for Development which is based in Cape Town. Now we come on to some of the environmental sustainable development goals. So I like to show this image of the Earth at night time, and here you can see just kind of where the big cities are and how much light pollution is generated from them. And here's another image which shows that a bit more clearly. And from this research that was done, they found that essentially 99% of Europeans and North Americans are living under light polluted skies, and that just seems like such a vast amount. On average in the world, it comes down to 83% of people. But for this reason, really, a lot of people now are trying to get to areas or travel to places that have dark skies because they just have never really experienced a clear, dark, starry night that they may have never otherwise seen before. And there's also many other implications of light pollution. So, for example, the simple one is that it's a waste of energy. A lot of lighting at night time isn't necessary, and could essentially be turned off or used only at hours where it's needed, and this would save a lot of money, but also a lot of carbon emissions if they were turned off. The International Dark Sky Association has a lot of information on this, so if you're interested, take a look at their website. And there's also many environmental impacts as well. So light pollution affects human beings, basically from looking at strong emissions in the blue wavelengths. You get a lot of impacts on your circadian rhythm, and it affects it suppresses melatonin production, which you need in order to fall asleep and to repair, to initiate the body's repair mechanisms. And as well as affecting humans, it affects all sorts of ecosystems for which insects are a part. So insects are attracted to the light, which makes them really easy for predators to find them and eat them, and then that disrupts the balance of these ecosystems. You also have a lot of impacts from pollinators. So a lot of insects pollinate not only during the day but also at nighttime. And so if you have a lot of light pollution, it affects the way in which these insects are behaving during the night. And if we have less pollination, or pollination that's not happening in the way it should be, then that is going to affect entire kind of food production and eventually have impacts on us as well. Then there's other things like dung beetles, which use the Milky Way to orientate themselves, and also things like turtles, which it affects, laying eggs and hatching of turtles on the coasts and beaches. And so basically, so far, research has found that everything that lives, from plants to insects to people, is affected by light pollution. And it's a significant problem that is not really talked about very much. Now we come to some social aspects of the SDGs. So, for example, there's a lot of research that looks at people and the benefits of being in nature, things like forest bathing and basically enjoying a day out in the woods or just in nature in general. But there's really little research that actually looks at the benefits of being in nature during the nighttime, or being under a really dark, clear, starry sky. And I think for at least a lot of you, I imagine, you have felt really wonderful benefits from experiencing a dark night sky. And so one of the things I'm advocating for is more research on this topic, because it's been very much neglected, and the nighttime is literally half of our lives. Then there's also obviously a lot of astronomy education, and astronomy is well known to be a gateway science. It brings a lot of young people into scientific fields, and is a great way to excite and generate excitement and enthusiasm. And so from everything from outreach and kind of planetariums to other sort of training programs that involve astronomy, of which there have been many in Africa, of course. Then also there's cultural aspects. So this is an example from the SKA, which commissioned this artwork between indigenous people in South Africa and in Western Australia, which kind of, I just love this image that brings together these kind of two completely different groups, but there is definitely so much in common between the two as well, in terms of the artwork and the inspiration of the stars in the universe. And I also love this example of using astronomy to foster peace between divided communities. So this example is from Cyprus, where they brought together children who, essentially are from very divided communities, and they, are brought up to hate one another. And so by working together and doing astronomy activities, they really were able to overcome the significant barriers and obstacles and stereotypes between them. And by the end of time, they were all best friends. And there's other similar examples of this as well. Say, working with astronomy in refugee camps and so on. So another example is getting governments to talk to each other. So we have a lot of organizations, intergovernmental organizations like ESO and ESA and the SKA Observatory. So these are all very big, funded by governments all over the world. And in order to do that, you have to make agreements, and the governments have to be able to talk to one another and make diplomatic agreements. And so astronomy can be quite a nice, refreshing way for governments to do that, where they're not talking about the stuff that they would normally have to talk about. And there are also examples that I really like when I heard about, say, between the African countries that are involved with the SKA, that they essentially are brought together more regularly, and from talking about astronomy, they've also ended up talking about other scientific projects or initiating other ideas, and it's really led on to build a new sort of scientific community and relationship across these African countries. There's also a lot of astronomy related, say, telescopes as a part of our culture. There's the example of the Hubble Space Telescope, which was going to be decommissioned, but there was such a public outcry that they decided that they had to keep Hubble going. And this is not something that would happen every day, so was quite a wonderful and very impactful and unusual thing that happened. And then the collapse of the Arecibo Observatory, that didn't only sadden astronomers around the world, but was really sad for many people and members of the general public. So I kind of enjoy looking at all of these different examples from the Sustainable Development Goals and how they relate to astronomy. And I'm sure there are many, many more examples that I haven't covered. So how might these overlap with Namibia more specifically? So Namibia is really great for astronomy. It's very dark, it's very dry. So here's a picture just showing how little light pollution there is. This is Windhoek in the middle, but essentially most of the country is really, really dark. And that makes it ideal not just for astrophysics, but for astrotourism as well. So here is the high energy spectroscopic system called H.E.S.S, and it's made up of 5 Cherenkov telescopes and is located about an hour and a half from Windhoek in the H.E.S. Highlands. And essentially this one here in the middle is the largest and the biggest in the world, and it's been in operation for almost 2 decades and is a very large collaboration with lots of more than 230 scientists around the world contributing to running it and working with its data and so on. But there are so many opportunities for telescopes to not just exist as an instrument in a country where you collect data and then that data goes to other scientists in other countries to benefit them. How can we actually use these telescopes in Namibia to benefit Namibians, and how can we build capacity? So, for example, things like school visits, bringing children, bringing teachers to the observatory to really see, you know, these are really big, amazing, awesome structures. So to really inspire them and make them, show them what, say, physics education, a degree in physics or astronomy could lead to, and how, and show them something tangible, because at least for most Namibians, they don't really know why they would do physics and what they would kind of do as a result of studying a subject like physics. And what's also important is that a lot of the schools unfortunately can't really afford to visit H.E.S., and it's very far for many of the schools to travel, and they can't even really afford to hire the coach, say, that will travel to the observatory themselves. So one of the things we're trying to do is get H.E.S. to kind of make sure that they put money towards projects like this, and bringing and helping support school children to come and visit. Then also things could be opened up as well. Say tourists are actually welcome to come and visit H.E.S., but it is really hard for them to sort of find the information and know that H.E.S. even exists in the first place. That can also kind of help support astronomy in the country, but also internationally as well, and show Namibia as a world leading country in this high energy astrophysics. And then also open days, similar as well, just generally really generating excitement and encouraging science and astronomy in the country. And so another project that's coming is the Africa Millimetre Telescope. So this is a telescope that already exists. It's a decommissioned submillimeter dish that's based currently in Chile. But the idea is it's perfectly usable and perfectly good. So why not bring it to Namibia and benefit Namibians, but also international projects as well. So, for example, the Event Horizon Telescope, which took the famous image of a black hole that you probably saw a couple of years ago. So this network currently doesn't have any dishes available to use in Africa, on the African continent. So having an additional one in Namibia would make a really significant improvement on the data and the observations that the EHT can make. Also, they're looking at making sure that this Africa Millimetre Telescope could be a part of the SKA as well. And these are all the countries that are taking part in that. And one of the really good things about the AMT is that already, before the telescope is there, they're thinking about how can we generate social impact. And so really, ultimately, it's about not doing helicopter research, which perhaps H.E.S. is kind of associated with, but it's about bringing and making astronomy relevant to and sustainable in Namibia, and building capacity. So how do we train Namibians from all stages so that there are Namibians ready and excited about the AMT when it comes, and that they can work on the telescope rather than having people from abroad coming to work on the telescope instead. There's also been some really interesting research happening by Maika, who has been looking at astronomy education and has been talking with students and people related, interested in astronomy and education in Namibia. And so that helps us to work out how to make it really relevant and appropriate. And also there's research going on by Sana, who's been looking at the freedom fighter Hendrik Witbooi and whether or not he was on the Gamsberg mountain. So we really want to understand what the cultural connotations and what the history is of the region where we're bringing the telescope, so that we have a good understanding of what it means to Namibians and how can we celebrate that in the best way possible, and obviously not kind of encounter issues that, say, is happening in Hawaii with the 30-meter telescope there. There's also collaborations with organizations like the Rosing Foundation who bring education to schools, and they were also involved with this mobile planetarium, and the idea there is to bring this mobile planetarium to every school in the country within the next few years, and that's also being led by Radboud and University and the NOVA organization. And essentially it's really important as well not to reinvent the wheel like many astronomers often do, but to learn from other projects, to coordinate with other projects that, say, do a lot of training and workshops for people in Africa or internationally, and work together essentially. So there's a lot on the horizon, and lots of exciting things coming in terms of astronomy and capacity building. And now looking more at the tourism side of things. So first of all, I want to just kind of briefly explain the theoretical definition of astrotourism, so that can sort of be divided into space tourism and terrestrial astrotourism. So space tourism is scarily kind of seems to be happening now. We actually have people, very few people, but people starting to go into space and spending a lot of money to do so. But I'm more interested in doing astrotourism from Earth, and I think that's much more sustainable. And so this could include lots and lots of different things, like going to visit space centers and visiting NASA, going to see rocket launches, visiting observatories. So this is an image of Salt in South Africa. Doing astrophotography, visiting places like Stonehenge, chasing eclipses, or doing dark sky tourism, which really does require dark skies. And not necessarily all of these activities happen at nighttime. So astrotourism does include many, many different things. But if you want to talk more specifically about stargazing, then that would come under dark sky tourism. So taking Namibia into example, so you've got the largest meteorite in the world, which is the H.E.S.S meteorite. This weighs more than 60 tons, so that's more than 10 elephants. It's so heavy, it's never been moved, and yeah, it's mostly made of iron and a little bit of nickel. Then there's the H.E.S.S and their AMT, as I've already talked about. And there's also the dark skies, of course, as well. So there are a lot of lodges or astro farms that kind of serve the more sort of privileged people, I would say. A lot of really rich tourists come to Namibia and spend a lot of money, and they get these really nice stargazing experiences. But one of our ideas is to really make it more accessible and bring astronomy to the lodges that don't necessarily do any astronomy and kind of are mostly focused on safaris and stuff like that. But then at nighttime, there's not really any activities being offered. You just have dinner and then you go to bed. So why not offer the stars as well? And then as part of that, you need kind of a lot of education on the light pollution aspects, and that because, well, at least when I was in Namibia, I stayed at a few lodges where there really was a lot of lighting, and it was there for the entire night, like even at Sossusvlei. So I thought that was a great shame that they've kind of brought in all of these lights and they're not making the most of the dark skies that are really on their doorstep. And so I would just also mention the Namibian Nature Reserve, which is in fact the first international dark sky reserve in Africa. And so essentially there are 3 organizations that sort of give accreditation for dark sky oases or dark sky areas to say that they're properly protecting their land from light pollution, and that they also kind of usually have some aspects on education and links to policy as well. And so far around the world there's kind of more than 150 international sort of dark sky places, or depending on what name you call them, depending on which organization it's related to. And that kind of covers 28 different countries and more than 22 million hectares. And so I just also want to show this example of light pollution. And so, yeah, obviously living in a city, you will have often very white LEDs, which have a lot of blue light in them. You can't see many stars. So what we need to do is also to better shield them and not have light leaking up into the sky, but have light pointing down, and also make the light warmer. So LEDs are great, they're very energy efficient, but ideally you want to use LEDs that have color temperatures of less than 2000 Kelvin if possible, and also reduce the intensity of them, and also only use them when you need them. You could implement motion detectors, for example, and so this really comes more often under a policy umbrella and getting governments and councils to implement these regulations and laws and restrictions on the way that lighting is used, but also individuals can make sure that they're trying to protect the skies and the environment as well. And also there's the cultural benefits of keeping things dark and working with marginalized communities. So I visited Sumkwe when I was in Namibia and worked with some of the San people there, and I was astonished to learn that actually when I asked them what are the stories and the indigenous star lore that they remember being passed down to them, and they said, at least the people that I met, they said that they didn't remember the stories and that it's already being forgotten. So now really is an important time to preserve this knowledge and to keep it, but also to empower these communities to show that this knowledge and their experience of the stars is amazing. And also from their perspective, they don't really realize how special the stars are because they see them all the time. They don't realize what a sky might look like from London, where you can't see anything. So there's really amazing opportunities here, and also this kind of tourism really has very minimal impact on the environment, and you don't really need much money, you don't need infrastructure, you don't need big telescopes, you can even just do it with the naked eye. So there's much to gain. And so as a part of that, we developed this course for tour guides where we're essentially kind of teaching some basic kind of astronomy knowledge, but also focusing and celebrating astronomy in Namibia and other southern African countries, and kind of showing how it relates to sustainable development and kind of looking at astrotourism worldwide and also in Namibia, and looking at the benefits of kind of keeping this indigenous style or and how that is important scientifically as well, and also the educational aspects on light pollution as well. And we're also not only working with tour guides, but working with people like from the Ministry of Tourism, and so not only kind of a bottom-up approach, but also top-down, to make sure that the tourism organizations and the important tourism bodies are aware of the opportunities and the potential from dark skies and tourism brings, especially after COVID has really decimated tourism in the country. So this can really maybe attract a new sort of variety of tourists and to diversify the tourism in Namibia and most likely other African countries as well. So thank you very much, and yeah, I'm very happy to discuss more and take some questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Hannah. There's so much there that could be applied to Botswana, I know, and it was a really excellent talk. So many things to take in, to think about, and to follow up, to be honest. I'd also like to thank you for giving this talk at very short notice, just about a week. And the fact we've got about 40 people online is really great. So anyway, if you want to ask a question, then raise your hand or just speak. I see we've got a few raised hands already. I know Rodri's had his hand raised for a little while. So Rodri, can I hand over to you to ask your question of Hannah? I think you're on mute at the moment. No? Okay. Dan Fisher has his hand up. Dan, do you want to ask a question while we're waiting for...
I'm Daniel Fisher. Now. Do you want to go?
Oh, okay. All right.
I have my video camera plugged in.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So my laptop is still in the car, and I rushed upstairs to my desktop, and I haven't got the video camera plugged in. So I actually wanted to make a clarification. I'm sorry, Hannah, for correcting you on stuff to do with the AMT. It's not fair of me, but you mentioned that the AMT telescope might form part of the SKA. That's not correct. It might form part of the ABN. And then the SKA will be separate facilities, probably not even close to Mount Gamsberg. And the other thing I wanted to say is, and you may not know this, but I did a lot of work on light pollution when I was at H.E.S.S Observatory from 1999 to when I left in 2001. I got all the neighboring towns to adopt lighting ordinances following the International Dark Sky Association guidelines. And the graphic that you showed of the well-shielded lights with the biggest source of light pollution at H.E.S.S was a dog track, which was about 10 kilometers away to the northwest. And when I went over there and investigated, I went over there at about 3 in the morning. All the lights of the car park were on, and it was a car park for about 3,000 cars. There wasn't a single car in the car park. They were all on, and they were so bright that although they were completely shielded, they just bounced off the tarmac and went back up in the air. I measured the intensity, and they were 10 times the level recommended for indoor reading. Yeah. So I arranged a meeting with the dog track owner, and I started talking to him about the fact that we tried to observe a gamma ray burst in that direction, and we failed to do so because of the dome of light in that direction. You could see his eyes glazing over. And then I said, do you realize how much money you're wasting having a car park illuminated all night for 3,000 cars when there's not a single car in the car park? You could have them on timers, whatever. And they went out of business a couple of years later.
Yeah, and
So shielding is not all the story. It has to be the right level of lighting, and the International Dark Sky Association has guidelines. So actually, it's the IEEF have guidelines on what the lighting levels are for particular situations, and they have guidelines for car parks. And this particular car park was something like 100 times brighter than it should be. It was just ridiculous. And I think they were trying to announce their presence to all of the Midwest of the United States.
There's so much information and help and guidance on this topic. It's just people just don't think of light pollution as being a pollution or being a
People
way
think
to
that
save
bright
money.
and nighttime environment is safer, and in fact, studies have shown it's quite the opposite.
Yeah, yeah.
Dimmer the light, because you can never illuminate anywhere, and the harsher the shadows, the more dangerous it is, and the less contrast between the lit and the unlit areas, the better.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. You're muted, Mike.
So I am. Chair's prerogative, yeah. Sorry, Dan, you had a question.
Thank you. I'm Daniel Fischer from Germany, and I would like to know whether you think that the authorities in Namibia, especially in Windhoek, are aware of the light pollution problem, and that they have an enormous, fantastic resource in the dark skies over their country. When I was last time in Namibia in 2004, a few kilometers south of Windhoek, I noticed a crossing of two roads in the middle of nowhere, and this crossing was illuminated as bright as daylight. You could see it for many kilometers around. And also on a farm halfway between H.E.S.S and Windhoek, you could already clearly see the light cone of Windhoek. Have things improved? Is there more understanding now? What do you think?
No, I think it's probably getting worse actually, because a lot of people, they realize that LEDs are cheap and are energy efficient, and so but they don't know about the different sort of color temperatures of LEDs and that some are better than others. So they just find whatever LEDs they can find, and the super bright ones, the super white ones, just because they don't know any different. And a big problem is that as they have become more cheap and more accessible, that people are using them even more and using even more light than we have in the past. We were trying to get in touch with, say, the mayor or sort of people like that in Windhoek, but I think in the end, we didn't manage to connect just because people are too busy, and also the pandemic and everything like that. But yes, I think it's definitely on our to-do list of trying to make not only the tourism industry aware, but also other people responsible for the environment and responsible for lighting and those kind of things as well. Because it really now is a good time to especially do something about it before it gets even worse than it already is. But yeah, good point.
Are there any grassroots organizations in Namibia that could help, for example, as a spin-off of some environmental movement, or is this all not existent in this country? I must admit, as a tourist, you don't interact much with the local activity groups, but now I wish I had.
Yeah, that's a good point. I possibly didn't think of it while I was there. But yeah, it would be worth seeing if there are maybe any ecological societies or those kind of things. I'm sure there must be something that exists. Maybe Rodri knows. I don't know. But yeah, I'll try and find out. That's good.
There are various organisations involved in ecology and wildlife and all kinds of things. It's just a question of bringing them all together. That's the problem. There are lots of overlapping organisations with overlapping interests, but then it's a question of someone spending the time to get them all talking to each other.
Yeah.
Okay, Zara, I think you have a question.
Hi, yeah, I'm Zara. I'm 16. I'm from Botswana. I had two questions actually. I just wanted to ask you, Hannah, what inspired you to be an astrophysicist yourself?
So probably because I watched too much sci-fi TV with my dad growing up. I just watched everything like Star Trek and Star Wars and Stargate and all of those. So I was just completely fascinated by space And then when I was 16, I went on a trip to Poland and I camped on top of a Polish mountain somewhere. And I think that was the first time that I saw a really dark sky and saw the Milky Way for the first time. And I just remember just being so in awe of that. And I just knew, yeah, I always wanted to study the universe. And I always loved lots of subjects and found it really hard to choose which one to do. And then I thought, well, at least studying the universe, at least that's kind of the biggest mystery, and that's where the most that we don't know, considering that we don't know what 97% of the universe is actually made of. So yeah, I guess for all of those reasons, I kept pursuing astronomy and astrophysics, even though physics was always my worst subject when I was at school, and I really hated it. But I loved astronomy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually the same. Well, not with Star Trek. I don't really watch a lot of that, but I've always been so fascinated with space and learning about space, because I think when I was really younger, my parents took me to the Okavango Delta in Botswana. So that was probably the first time also I saw like a pure dark sky, and I was like, wow, it's like so big out there. And I think I've always been so obsessed with like this idea of like how we don't know anything about space and there's so much to discover. So it's been really fascinating. But yeah, my second question was also, are you thinking of spreading this program to Botswana, because it's also a really great place, because we've got lots of areas here where there's little light pollution, and there's lots of people who need jobs. So I think it would also be like a very good investment to come to Botswana as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It would definitely be very relevant, I think, for Botswana, and yeah, I've had a lot of interest as well in the calls from people based in Botswana, and yeah, I guess it's just kind of getting the information and the knowledge out there so that people can do what's relevant for them and to implement things and you need some, yeah, entrepreneurs, or what do they call them? Astropreneurs, to do this kind of thing. But yeah, absolutely. And yeah, maybe who knows, one day I will get to visit Botswana and can do some stuff there. But yeah, and I also definitely want to raise another thing about just, yeah, how seeing a really dark sky, seeing the Milky Way does have such a huge impact. I'm also involved with this international astronomy camp, and that's been going for 50 years. And I did one study that kind of looked at where those people have ended up 50 years later, and what the impact of going to an astronomy camp and seeing dark skies and meeting people from all over the world has. And yeah, at least from the people that responded to our survey, a lot of people ended up kind of doing science related things, and they felt like they could pursue astronomy or other sciences where they thought that they wouldn't have belonged, or they couldn't have done it, or couldn't have fit in, and also this very international sort of aspect of that we are all living under one sky and there are no boundaries, and yeah, so there's a lot of evidence for that as well.
Yeah, because even when I was younger, I used to go to Thornhill primary school, and what they did was they brought this astronomy team. I'm not really sure what they're called because I was very young back then, but they created this dome in our hall, and we all got to go inside of it, and they projected the sky onto this dome and like taught us about the different parts that we had discovered so far in space. And I think that was also very, like, a lot of people were so astonished about when they like saw all of this, because it was still daytime, but we were still experiencing this at such a young age. It was very enlightening. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Zara. We have a question on the chat from Nonofo. I think, Nonofo, are you a teacher, do I recall correctly? Or maybe I'm mistaken?
That's right, I'm a teacher.
Yeah. Do you want to ask your question, or do you want me to read it out?
Well, I wanted to know about mentorship. Like right now in Botswana, it's a fairly new thing here, and we don't have so many people who have been pioneers of this. So we don't have so many people to look up to and say, I want to be like that person, and all that. So how did you do it in Namibia, and how are you still doing it? And I also wanted to know about motivation. Like, where do you get the motivation? Because at times you feel like, oh, things are just not happening. Like, where do you get the motivation to continue? Thank you.
Thanks. So I guess in Namibia, I've forgotten the name, but there was a very, very famous astrophysicist who ended up in the US, and used to come back to Namibia and give a talk at the universities and at schools, and really inspired a lot of people. And he died recently, unfortunately. So yeah, when I met quite a lot of people in Namibia and kind of mentioned astronomy, a few people remembered this guy who had been successful and was a Namibian and had left and was working for places like NASA and so on. So I think, yeah, in some ways he was an inspiration for people. But yes, mentorship is so important, and I have talked with some people in South Africa on this topic, where essentially what they do that works quite well is, rather than having sort of really old professors going to schools and trying to engage with people there, what they find works much better is if you close the gaps between the levels, and you have, say, for example, people who are, maybe just finished their bachelor's or their master's, and then they go back to their hometowns or their villages, and they work with the school kids there, maybe for a week or two, and help them and encourage them and go through physics with them. And that has had a really profound impact, and younger people are more able to identify and work with and feel less afraid of, say, people who are younger, who are university level students, rather than working with lecturers and professors higher up. But then as you go up, then you need mentorship from those higher levels, of course. So what I would suggest is, yeah, if there are students based in Botswana who have got sort of recent astronomy degrees, they can go back to their homes and work with the schools there, and help them with any issues that they might be struggling with in terms of the material or the curriculum. At least, so that's what I've heard works really well in South Africa, and I can imagine it working quite well in Namibia as well. And then where do I get my motivation? Who knows? I'm feeling quite tired, but I guess, if you just love what you do, then you just feel endless energy to do it. But yeah, there were definitely some days where I had more energy and motivation than others. But then there's getting to do amazing things where you do talk to someone who has been hugely impacted by something that you have done, or really appreciates you taking the time to help them and work with them. And that feeds your motivation even more to continue to do more and do what you can. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nanofa. We have Johan Grobler has said that it was Jappie van Zyl.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Simon van der Lingen has made a comment on this. yeah, saying that one of the Harare schools invited a few members of the Harare AstroSoc to participate in an astronomy evening, which worked quite well. Astro Society didn't include any astro professionals, only enthusiastic amateurs, but it sparked a lot of interest. Yeah, so that's another point about mentoring as well, that you can use that network of amateur astronomers as well, which I know you do. Okay, well, it's approaching 1930 Central African time. So I would, oh, Rodri, did you have one more question? Let's see you.
No, I haven't, sorry.
Okay.
I can think of one if you want, but I wasn't planning to.
No, that's fine, that's fine. Okay, so thanks again to Hannah for an excellent talk. I'm sure the invitation to Botswana will be coming your way, and it is a wonderful country, as I know myself, with some great people and great ambitions. Astronomy is set to grow significantly in Botswana over the next few years, and I hope very much that you can help us to achieve some of our goals. So thank you very much for the talk. Everybody, I hope, is well and stays safe. The next talk is, as I said at the beginning, from Prof. Steve Longmore from Liverpool, who will be talking about astroecology, the use of drones, and the way that astronomy sparked this project that has been going really well for the last few years, and Hannah knows it very well as well. Okay, so thanks everybody. For those who are members of the Society's committee, we have a committee meeting immediately after this via another Zoom link, I think. So I'll have to have a look and see what that is. But for those who are not part of that meeting, have a good rest of the evening, and I hope to see you on September the 23rd. And thanks again to Hannah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very interesting talk.
Thank you.